have Dr. Surbhi Madan from Marengo Sims Hospital, Ahmedabad. She is a lifetime member of Clinical Infectious Society of India and American Society of Infectious Diseases. She has been awarded Times Power Moon Award in the past. Over to Dr. Surbhi, please.
A very good morning, everyone. First of all, I thank the whole Rajkot team for having me here. And I thank my mentor, Dr. Rajiv Soban, for making me worthy of standing here, and Dr. Balaji from CMC Vellore, who has contributed a few slides for my presentation. So we all know that antimicrobial resistance in gram-negatives is an alarming scenario, and the resistance rate in India is worse as compared to the West. It is actually a public health emergency now. Resistance mechanisms are different, and therefore the treatment also varies. Now, what we have been trying to do for a long time is recycling the old drugs for the treatment of our carbapenem-resistant gram-negatives. But luckily, there are a couple of drugs in the market now, which are all going to be soon available, which I will be discussing and touching upon. So my topic is newer mechanisms and therefore newer drugs, which cannot be a very, very basic talk because we are going to discuss the high antibiotics. So can I have a show of hands? How many of us treat carbapenem-resistant infections here? So pardon me if I'm going above the, the basics, because I don't see many people treating carbapenem-resistant infections here, but I will be touching totally upon the newer molecules. So I'll be taking the help of a few cases based on which we will discuss these antibiotics. So this is a 42-year-old male patient who is a known case of cardiac disease, and he had multiple admissions from April to May last year, mainly for the cardiac reasons. He received oxygen, inotropic supports, and of course he had that prescription which contained injectable and oral cephalosporins. And by the first week of May, he developed a new onset cough, fever, dyspnea, and chest pain. So this is not a rocket science. There is dense lobar consolidation, and probably we are dealing with a healthcare-associated pneumonia here. Now, he was shifted to our setup with NIV support, and as you can see here, his CRP has increased significantly as compared to the previous ones. And once he reached SIMS, his CT had even worsened with involvement of both the lungs as well as a new pleural effusion. So now, what is the best step here? We want to escalate the antibiotics empirically with gram-positive and gram-negative cover. We want to send sputum cultures, do a bronchoscopy straight away, or add antifungals. So we know that the guidelines say that non-invasive aspirates are non-inferior to the bronchoscopy-guided BAL, and semi-quantitative reporting is enough. Also, you need to cover empirically MRSA in your setup if the rates of HAP or VAP due to MRSA are more than 10%. So it will totally depend on your epidemiology. So the pulmonologist under whom this patient was admitted started this patient on meropenem, teicoplanin, and minocycline. Sorry, I can't move my slide. It's not moving. Okay. Okay. So ultimately, the patient was not responding, and therefore bronchoscopy was done. And this is showing budding yeast cells on the gram stain and few GNBs. So what do we do with these budding yeast cells, which is probably Candida? How many of us want to treat it with fluconazole? No one. So this is possibly a colonizer. No need to treat Candida coming from the respiratory tracts. And this GNB ultimately turned out to be a carbapenem-resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae. So this patient was started on polymyxin B and minocycline as per the sensitivity report, and colistin nebulization was added. Now the most important question is whether this is the best regimen for this patient, or do we have any other options? And now, before we go to that answer, let us see what are the basic mechanisms of resistance in patients who have got carbapenem-resistant infections. So the most common mechanisms of carbapenem resistance is the production of beta-lactamases, which are called carbapenemases, which is the last box. Now in carbapenemases, again, we have KPCs, which is mainly a problem of the West. We rarely see KPCs in our settings. Then we have OXA48, and then the most virulent ones, that is the metallo-beta-lactamases, which includes NDM, WIM, or IMP. There may be other mechanisms of resistance present, either in combination or alone, but most of the times I must tell you that it's a combination of various resistance mechanisms which are present in that bug at the same time. So we cannot see them in isolation. So there can be loss of outer membrane proteins, there can be efflux pumps present, or PBP3 inserts in E. coli, which is an emerging mechanisms of resistance. So if we see carbapenem resistance E. coli, most of the time it's NDM plus or minus PBP3 insert or OXA 181. On the other hand, in Klebsiella, we have OXA 48 plus NDM, and here luckily we do not have any PBP3 insert, which I'll touch upon what is it actually. And then there is an important mechanism called porin loss, which leads to poor penetration of the antibiotics into the cell. Now this is something which is very, very scary. From our country, this is the data from India only, and there is a very high prevalence of the new mechanism of resistance called PBP3 insert in NDM producing E. coli's. So what it does is, basically PBP3, which is the target of cephalosporins. So if you have an alteration in this target, what happens is it leads to actually loss of activity to almost all the available antibiotics, including ceftazidime, avibactam, aztreonam, and everything. So if we see the various BL-BLI combinations, especially the novel ones, to treat these kind of organisms, the two ones which are, I've bolded them, ceftazidime, avibactam, which is presently available, and aztreonam, avibactam, which is going to be soon available. So these are the two antibiotics. Now, if you see the coverage, ceftazidime, avibactam does not cover metallo-beta-lactamases. Apart from that, it covers all your other carbapenemases. On the other hand, aztreonam, avibactam would cover all the enzymes, including the NDMs, IMS, and WIMS. So one by one, if we look at the various treatment for carbapenem-resistant GNBs, so we have been using polymyxins for quite some time now. The advantage is they are broad-spectrum agent. They will cover all the GNBs. But the problem is the narrow therapeutic window, the toxicities, variable pharmacokinetics, increasing resistance, combination treatment which is necessary for severe infections, and poor penetration into various organs. And that is why we want to use the other better drugs. Then we have fosfomycin, which has got a totally different mechanism of resistance, but it does not have any action against Acinetobacter. Again, there is increasing resistance seen, and monotherapy with fosfomycin should not be used in systemic infections. It leads to very high and fast development of resistance. Then we have TG cycline. It again does not cover Pseudomonas, and there has been a black box warning against use in HAP. Minocycline, against not a very, very strong drug, has to be used in combination and does not act against Pseudomonas. And then we have cefiderocol. You know, it came out as a very promising drug, but again, we have lot of mechanisms of resistance which have already developed against this drug. So actually, in our settings, this has not, proved to be a very good drug. So the various caveats associated with the use of colistin and polymyxin B are variable pharmacokinetics, because of which the AUC by MIC of 60, which correlates with a steady state average of 2, it is very difficult to achieve that, which converts into cytality because of the problem of toxicities with the drug. And therefore, though polymyxin B, it is a little better than colistin in terms of better pharmacokinetics, and in patients with augmented renal clearance especially, where you should use polymyxin B over colistin. Of course, polymyxin B cannot be used in patients with UTIs. Now coming back to our case, this is a patient with pneumonia. So the problem here with polymyxin B is penetration into the lung as well, which is just 5 to 10% of the serum levels. And if we discuss the lung penetration of other drugs, the ceftazidime, avibactam, aztreonam, avibactam, cefiderocol, they are moderate. Phospho-TG, they are not sensitive here, though they have got better penetrations. And then we have, we use inhaled steroids. So what, inhaled colistin. So what is the data on that? So the in vitro data and the meta-analysis data is promising, but this is in the ideal scenario. The problem is that we do not have ideal formulations for inhaled mode. We do not have proper jet nebulizers vibrating mesh nebulizers for the proper use of inhaled colistin. So this mode has not picked up very well. So that brings to us a better drug, which is ceftazidime avibactam, and there is now a lot of data that this drug is better than polymyxins in terms of clinical cure, microbiological eradication, as well as mortality. So in our patient, we checked the CARBAR gene expert, so we found that there was OXA detected, so it was a mono-OXA producing Klebsiella, which means that monotherapy with ceftazidime avibactam would act well. So as you can see here, this is the E-strip, which is showing very nice clearing of the growth. Therefore, this patient was treated with monotherapy. Now, the next case is a 66-year-old male from Baswada, Rajasthan, hypertension and diabetic, and he developed post-CABG surgical site infection due to Klebsiella. Again, it was a carbapenem resistant one, and right now he's in Udaipur, and they have tested all the antibiotics, and they have reported sensitivity to Mino, TG, and ceftazidime avibactam, and intermediate to colistin. So he was admitted in Udaipur and given all the combinations of the antibiotics which were susceptible, but he still had persistent pus discharge. So he was admitted with us, and the pus swab sent at our setup also grew the same Klebsiella. Now here is it's intermediate to fosfomycin. As I was mentioning, fosfomycin develops resistance very fast on treatment. Earlier it was reported sensitive, now it is intermediate. So use fosfomycin very, very carefully. So empirically, when the patient got admitted, a VAC drain was put, and we planned for debridement, and CT scans were done, and polymyxin B was started empirically. Now, when we checked the pattern of molecular resistance, it was a combination of NDM and OXA. However, so this is the test called synergy test, where we keep ceftazidime avibactam and aztreonam together, and the drugs which were not separately sensitive now give you a synergistically efficacious combination. So this drug was checked by both the methods. The upper one, the tubes one, is the broth dilution method, which is the ideal one recommended by the guidelines. So this patient was treated with a combination of Cas-AV with aztreonam for 4 weeks, achieving a complete cure. The next case is a 61-year-old male from Somnath without any comorbidities. So he presented elsewhere with hematuria and pain over the right flank, and they found that he had a right upper ureteric calculus with mild hydronephrosis. There was some pyuria and hematuria. He delayed the procedure suggested, and after 3 months he underwent an RIRS and right DJ stenting. Unfortunately, post-procedure he developed a UTI, fever with chills, dysuria, lot of pus cells, and therefore they took a wise decision to remove the stent. However, they did not send any cultures upfront there and treated him empirically with cefixime. The patient, of course, persisted to have all the signs of infection. And then, unfortunately, he suffered from an MI for which he was conservatively managed, and then shifted to our setup on NIV support with inotropes with a very low urine output and a raised creatinine. So his blood cultures and urine cultures both grew Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which was reported outside susceptible to piptazo, aminoglycosides, and colistin, and he was treated elsewhere with meropenem and ceftriaxone sulbactam. But when he came to us, his Pseudomonas was found to be susceptible only to aminoglycoside, fosfomycin, and colistin. So now what are the antibiotics of choice here? This is a very critical patient. Should we start him on colistin monotherapy, fosfomycin monotherapy, or aminoglycosides alone, or a combination of antibiotics, or something else? And also this patient was started on CRRT. So in ICU, the doses of antibiotics which were chosen were fosfomycin 4 gram OD, colistin 1 MU TDS. Now it's very, very important whenever we are treating these kind of difficult bugs with high antibiotics, we should choose our antibiotics wisely. At the same time, the doses of antibiotics have to be checked again and again whether we are not underdosing. So in patients with CRRT, this is a highly suboptimal dose. So at this point, as the patient was not improving, I was called in, and we did a CT KOB. There was acute pyelonephritis present as well. So this is a patient with carbapenem-resistant Pseudomonas urosepsis with acute pyelonephritis, and by the time I saw him, he was already shifted on SLED followed by intermittent HD. So now the various issues here are whether this patient can be treated with monotherapy or we need a combination therapy. what should be the choice of antibiotics, doses of antibiotics, do we need to know the molecular mechanisms, are there any other drugs which we could test in lab, or any other intervention needed. So we did a CABA gene expert for this patient, and the molecular mechanism which we found the beta-lactamase was IMP1. And here, the synergy test, which was done with Casavi and Astronam, was negative. So this is a very good case to give an example of the poor susceptibility of this combination against Pseudomonas. So do not use this combination in Pseudomonas, neither empirically, and do be very, very sure when you want to use it that it is susceptible. So this patient was started on colistin and fosfomycin with the doses optimized. Bilateral DJ stenting was done. He responded very well after optimizing the doses and after stenting. Now let's see what are the various mechanisms of carbapenem resistance in Pseudomonas. So Pseudomonas is inherently resistant to cephalosporins. Please do not use cephalosporins against Pseudomonas, which is a very common practice I see in my OPD practice. ESBLs are rare in Pseudomonas. However, the main mechanism of resistance is efflux, porins, and inducible AMPs. On the other hand, there are metallo-beta-lactamases, that is NDMs, followed by IMPs, which are present in Pseudomonas. So many a times you won't find your novel beta-lactamase inhibitors combinations working well against pseudo because of the presence of efflux, porin, and inducible AMPs. Now we come to the colistin dosing. So this is a chart which is available in the guidelines. You can keep it handy in your mobile so that you do not make mistakes in the dosings of the drug. And if we talk about colistin doses in renal patients, so on in a patient who is on intermittent dialysis, on non-HD day, you give around 4 million units per day. On HD day, please supplement a dose of around 1.6 million unit or for a 4-hour dialysis session. Supplement this dose to the baseline dose with the next regular dose after the dialysis session has ended, and conduct the HD sessions as late as possible within a CMS dosage interval to minimize the amount of CMS and formed colistin lost to the extracorporeal system. Again in SLED, 10% of the dose should be added to the baseline daily dose per hour of SLED. And in CRRT, the doses are very high, somewhere around 12 to 16 million units per day, which comes to 6 to 7 million units BD. So, and on the other hand, if your patient has got an augmented renal clearance, there it is very, very difficult to achieve the steady state level of 2 with the usual doses. So their colistin usually fails. And also, there is a very limited data on the correlation between MICs, drug concentrations, and clinical outcomes of polymyxins. And therefore, CLSI has removed the susceptible interpretive category for polymyxins. So whatever susceptible I am showing you in my reports are the UCAS criteria. They are not CLSI guidelines. Now, this is the data from a hospital which we presented in SITSCON last year. And as you can see here, most of our Klebsiellas are NDM with oxas. E. coli's are NDMs and NDM with oxas equally. On the other hand, Pseudomonas, the mechanisms of resistance are different most of the times rather than, the presence of any carbapenemases. And if I talk about the synergy, Casavi and Astronam synergy, in Pseudomonas, again, as I mentioned, the synergy is very poor, so do not use this combination upfront in Pseudomonas. Now, 2 other drugs which we have been using. Now, phospho is an excellent drug. Please do stop the using of, the sachet, phosphomycin sachet. We have to preserve that drug for usage in these kind of systemic infections. Do not use the phosphomycin powder sachet in these kind of infections. The bioavailability is very poor, and high doses orally will give your patient a very bad diarrhea. So use this drug IV formulation, only in combination, never ever alone, except for a very few patients who have just got, cystitis, because the concentration of phospho is very, very high in the lower urinary tract. And now talking about TG cycline, it should not be used in patients with UTI and bloodstream infection. It does not achieve any concentrations there. It has to be used as combination only, and preferably high doses, 200 milligram loading dose followed by 100 mg BD. Now, this is the next case, which is a 58 years old male patient from Jodhpur, and he has been operated for left renal calculi with a stent placed in 2022. Now, this man forgot to get his stent removed, and he was roaming around in, in Jodhpur with the stent for almost a year, and therefore he presented in Feb 24 with burning micturition, fever, vomiting. Creat had increased from a baseline 1.2 to 2.6. However, his vitals were stable, patient looked absolutely fine, and he had been treated with meropenem and fluoroquinolones before presenting to us. So this again was Pseudomonas aeruginosa in the urine cultures, and this is sensitive only to colistin as per the UCAS criteria. Phosphomycin also is resistant. Again, phospho is not a good drug for Pseudomonas. Never ever use it empirically for pseudo. And when we checked the mechanism, it was mono-NDM producer. So what do we do here? I need an answer before I move to the next slide. Yes? Yes? Okay, let's see what does the synergy says. So the point here is never ever use this combination for Pseudomonas empirically. The synergy is resistant. And so this combination is not going to work. What do we do now? Colistin, right? So we don't have any other option apart from colistin. Any other drug? So on compassionate basis, so this patient refused to take colistin because of the issues which were explained about the nephrotoxicity, and also he was a very stable patient. I myself also did not want to use colistin in him because he was otherwise stable, and if his creatinine jumped up, then he would end up in dialysis. I was sure about that. So on compassionate basis, we called VOCAD, and we recruited this drug for him, which is called cefepime zidebactam. It is not available in the market as of now. We have used in 3 patients till now, and it is a good drug. This is the manuscript which we have submitted to one of the international journals, and this is the whole genome sequencing of the strain which this patient was having. So this patient was treated with cefepime zidebactam in the renally modified doses. Of course, source control was done in the terms of percutaneous nephrostomy and drainage of pus, and later on he underwent left RIRS and percutaneous nephrolithotomy with placement of DJ stent, which was removed later on, and I waited for the DJ stent to get removed from his system. After removal, I gave him 1 week of another cefepime zidebactam, and after that, complete microbiological and clinical cure was achieved. I will take 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Yeah. So cefepime zidebactam is a new molecule which is a beta-lactam-beta-lactamase enhancer. Zidebactam has got a totally different mechanism of resistance. It basically enhances the beta-lactam present in the molecule, that is cefepime, by synergistically acting on different kind of penicillin binding protein. And now we have another drug which is coming up in next, I think, recent future, which is called plazomicin. Now, plazomicin is different from the earlier aminoglycosides because it's a semi-synthetic aminoglycoside, and it has got a different mechanism of action. It acts at a level where the aminoglycoside modifying enzymes, which are the most common mechanism of resistance to the earlier aminoglycosides, will spare this drug. So hopefully we would be able to use it even in bad E. coli's, where we have a lot of NDMs, even PBP3 inserts. Only time is going to tell us. We have the, the criteria established for this drug. They will provide us with the discs and E-strips as well. So now summarizingly, if we look at all the guidelines, so these are the ICMR and the Indian guidelines, which are excellent reads. I would request all of you to go through them once. And they very clearly tell you the different organisms with different molecular mechanisms of resistance, what should be empirically chosen, what should be chosen after you have the, you want to use the targeted therapy. So for example, if you have an NDM producing Enterobacteriaceae, E. coli or Klebsiella, or an NDM with OXA, you cannot use Casavy-aztreonam empirically till you have a proven synergy test. Start with polymyxins. Test your organism, and if you have susceptibility, then use Casavy-aztreonam. However, if you have monooxa or KPC, you can upfront use ceftazidime avibactam. I would ask, I would request to test for the Cas-AV sensitivity in the lab and then only use it, because apart from the beta-lactamase production, there can be other mechanisms of resistance as well, which can make Cas-AV monotherapy also resistant. On the other hand, if you have Acinetobacter or Pseudomonas, there is no question of using these molecules empirically. Even targeted therapy would be difficult. Cas-AV, Aztreonam have no action on Acinetobacter. So we are left for Pseudomonas, we are left mainly with polymyxin B. Of course, Cefepime, Zidibactam and Plazomycin are the upcoming drugs. For Acinetobacter, you have a combination of polymyxin B, Sulbactam, minocycline, TG-cycline, nothing else. Now, these are the doses, which I am not going to go into the detail. Again, empirical use of Cas-AV is not advisable. What should be the duration? Now, this is a beta-analysis of patients with pneumonia with carbapenem-resistant strain. So, many guidelines say that you can stop the treatment at 7 days. However, they very clearly comment that short duration may not be feasible for these kind of resistant bugs. So, treat your patient as long as 10 days, 12 days, 14 days, depending on the bug, depending on the clinical, as well as radiological and microbiological recovery. So, the take-home messages from my slides are: evolution of organisms to these superbugs is one of the biggest challenges to the mankind ever. The agony, morbidity, mortality, costs, and emotional turmoil associated with these infections is appalling. Newer, efficacious, and safer antibiotics still remain the need of the hour. We as clinicians should feel responsible with respect to infection control, following antimicrobial stewardship, and remaining updated with the new molecules and various strategies related to their usage. Thank you.